Am I crazy? Am I crazy? What? Hello everyone, welcome back to No Frontiers Japan. We've got our final episode instant reaction coming at you right now. It's for episode number 8 of One Piece's live action, Worst in the East. Now stop. If you're not going to watch this instant reaction, but you're curious what my thoughts are for the series as a whole, including my rating, my favorite scenes, best characters, and things I would change or add for season 2, then make sure you subscribe to the channel because that's going to be coming out very soon and you don't want to miss it. There's a lot of information for them to cover in this episode, so right off the bat we get the opening scene where we got young Nami, who's basically a prisoner for Arlong. She's getting her tattoo, she's drawing maps, and she's in a prison. All of that accurate, have to establish that, so very good job. Next up, we've got a scene with all the villagers in the destroyed Koko village. I'm okay with it, it's fine. We know they changed the story a little bit, especially in terms of how long it took for them to find out that Nami was actually working with Arlong in order to save them. They always knew the whole time, but in this story, they changed that. I'm not sure why, but that's what happens. They're in the destroyed Koko village. It's okay. They want to fight? That's correct. Then for some reason, they want to include Helmeppo, Koby, Garp, Nezumi again. Keep seeing too much of them. Let's just pretend that scene never happened. So if you followed all of my instant reactions so far, then you will know one of the most important things for me, even though they have to abbreviate the story, even though they have to reimagine scenes, one of the most important things for this live action of One Piece is to recapture and redo these iconic moments. Many have been missed out, some have actually been very well done. And in this episode, there are two iconic moments. One, I'm so angry. I'm so angry. We didn't get it. And then one, nailed it. My reaction to this episode is so hot and so cold. In the first iconic moment that they totally messed up because they didn't include it, they just skipped right past it, is the walk to Arlong Park. So remember in the previous episode, it ended with Luffy saying he's going to help Nami because she asked for his help. Finally, she said, please help me. And he said yes. Gave her his hat, and him, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp, they walk to Arlong Park. And this moment is so epic. You have the epic One Piece music, dun dun dun, dun 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 dun. It's playing in the background, and we know the heroes are coming to save the villagers who are already at the gates of Arlong Park. Those villagers want to sacrifice their lives so they can fight for their freedom, but they're told by these two characters who are not introduced in the live action that these guys are coming. They are coming. They say they are coming. And the villagers don't know who they are. And then you see in the distance, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp, as I said, and they're just silently walking. They're not talking. They're just like, we're going to go kick Arlong's ass. And no one thought Arlong could be defeated. And they have this epic walk with the music. There's a couple funny scenes in the anime about that walk. It does look a little bit weird because it's early anime, so the characters are not nearly as well done as they are, 20 years later. But it's just such an epic moment, and they totally remove that. I don't understand how they skip ahead to Arlong Park without including this epic walk. Is it? Am I crazy? Is it in my imagination? Do you not remember that epic walk? Am I crazy? Am I crazy? What? All right, I'm going to just try to forget about that scene. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to properly react to the rest of the episode. The fight breaks out at Arlong Park. It's very well done. I like the fact that you have Zoro and Sanji. They're bickering as they're fighting, which is very good. It shows their dynamic. But I also like the fact that Sanji kind of saves Zoro with a fisherman jumping at him from behind. He actually flies out of nowhere. How did they do that? I have to watch that again in slow motion. And then we have Buggy's head. I was worried we're going to just see more of Buggy. We're getting too much Garp, too much Buggy. Why are they doing this? And then Buggy, once he goes on his body, I thought he was going to fight or something. No way, he doesn't do that. He says, I'm out of here. I'm exiting left stage. Perfect, please, thank you, Buggy, gone. We'll see you later. So this episode 8 jumps all over the place, back and forth, but just to make it a bit easier to kind of break down and give you my reaction, I'm going to group the different events together. So continuing with the fight at Arlong Park between Zoro, Sanji, and the fisherman, I like the fact that they introduced Kurobi. And Kurobi originally, he's the one who fights Sanji, and Sanji defeats him. Kurobi is the guy who has kind of the bladed arms, and he does the fisherman karate. Karate is the Japanese pronunciation for, what's a Western way of saying it? Karate. He does the fisherman karate. And I think it's too bad that they both have to fight him, but it makes sense because normally Zoro would have fought a different character whose name is Hachi. I'm really disappointed that they didn't include Hachi. I think Hachi's actually a big character in One Piece, so the fact that he wasn't introduced is a little bit disappointing. I guess he's just too expensive to make because of the CGI that would be required. You can't just give him prosthetics. That's a little bit of a shame for me. In fact, that's one of the top 5 characters that I wish they included. One of those top 5 would actually be Momu. Momu. You know the story, you know who Momu is. And Momu, so cute, but once again, you need a lot of CGI for that and probably just not in their budget, which is too bad. And I'm not going to give them a free pass on that because I didn't make the decision to make One Piece. They chose to make One Piece. So, you know, you have to accept responsibility if you just cut characters because it's not possible in the given budget. Sorry. Next major character I want to talk about is Usopp defeating one of the fishermen. I believe his name is Chu, but he's the one who was actually in the previous episode spitting fireballs. That was really well done. They were totally on point with it. It was really accurate. He pretended to be dead, and that's how he tricked him and eventually was able to dispose of him with his exploding fire star that lit him on fire, essentially. That was great, and it's very accurate, and especially it's a big moment for Usopp because he never really fights anyone directly, he never confronts them, and even in this scene he's running away, but he uses his wits to find a way to get one up and eventually beat one of these fishermen who are super powerful. So it was nice that he got that kind of shining moment of glory even though no one was around to see it. That was good. And then the final scene, the main event of this entire season, Luffy versus Arlong. That was so good. If you've watched my videos, you know I'm pretty picky and I hold the live action series to a high standard. Even if you're even more picky than me, I don't see how you can't be at least a little bit satisfied with this. It was really good. When Luffy saw this prison that Nami was kept in and wanted to destroy it in a metaphorical way of freeing her from Arlong's grasp, that was perfect. Him destroying the walls, I loved it. Him using his attack moves on Arlong, they're finally showing some of that. Even he punched Arlong in the mouth. It's a little bit different, but still Arlong regrowing his teeth because he's a shark and sharks quickly can regrow their teeth. So, I think. But that's originally in the story. So I like they included that as well. That was so good. And then we got this iconic moment and they nailed it. They nailed it. He smashed him and the whole tower collapsed. I was so happy. Yeah! Yes, yes, yes! Yeah! Come on! Let's go! Woo! Yes! That was so epic. That was so epic. I suddenly was able to, because they nailed that so well. They nailed it so well. Even as the building was falling down and the dust and from the debris that just covered his crewmates who are watching in terror because they saw the building collapsing on both him and Arlong. So well done. They totally nailed it. Finally, something where I can just applaud and say 100% that was so good. It was so much better than I probably would have expected, especially because of many of the things that did naturally disappoint me. So well done. As fun as that was, there's still more fun to come because as is classic with the Straw Hat Pirates, you always need a post-fight celebration, a post-fight party. And this is one really just nice moment where we can see the characters reinforcing these elements of their personality which we've been introduced to slowly over time. For example, the bickering between Zoro and Sanji. I like how Sanji says, I don't need 3 swords to prove I'm a man. He's also hitting on Nojiko, who's having none of that. And then you've also got Usopp, who's telling his grand story. Everyone, because he's a good storyteller, even though it's a total, well, it's a lie. I mean, Usopp had his victory against one of the fishmen, and those fishmen are pretty tough. But it's a lie, and everyone is just like, wow, because he's such a good storyteller. And then even Luffy says, 3 cheers for Captain Usopp. And that was a really nice moment. I think that's a great decision, especially because obviously we know Usopp's a storyteller, but it reinforced who Luffy is. Luffy, even though he's a real badass, he's actually a real badass, he's so powerful, and he beats some pretty tough opponents, but he never takes credit. That's one thing about Luffy is he's so humble. So him kind of supporting, even though he knows that Usopp's story is not true, him supporting Usopp in that moment was really great. And then too much Garp. But at this point, we know there has to kind of be a conclusion with Garp's pursuit of Luffy in season 1. So they do that fight. That's good. I just don't know why we didn't hear the Fist of Love. Like, what about the Fist of Love? Come on. Garp's Fist of Love, right? Fist of Love. Then we've got Nami and Nojiko's scene. I don't know much to say about that, but I did like the scene after that with Luffy and with Kobe when they meet. And there's obviously this mutual respect that's kind of growing between both of them. I really like that Luffy says, be a good Marine, and then Koby says, be a good pirate, which is really obviously Luffy wants to be the king of the pirates, but a good pirate. Luffy's a great guy, and he's actually kind of, in that sense of the word, a good pirate. I thought that was a great scene. And then of course Luffy is very excited to get his wanted poster. I've talked about it before, but having a bounty is this source of competition between pirates and a source of pride, especially those who don't fear being chased, because having a bounty obviously means you're a wanted person and you're going to be chased. But them and their reaction was really nice, and I like how Usopp is excited because the back of his head is captured on that wanted poster, which is 100% what happens. It's 100% what happens, and people are kind of jealous of it, but they say, oh, it's just the back of your head. But you know they're secretly jealous that Usopp's actually appearing on that poster. Even Kaya's noticed the back of Usopp's head on Luffy's wanted poster. But then we have the most important scene where Mihawk actually brings Luffy's wanted poster to Shanks. That's a great moment, not just because Shanks sees that Luffy has followed up on his promise and has become a pirate, a fledgling pirate at that. And they're obviously very excited about it, and they kind of tease him a little bit, saying, ooh, watch out. But what's really nice is the mutual respect you see between Mihawk and Shanks. And now we know, confirmation of what I mentioned 2 episodes ago, Mihawk is bored, and there's only one person who's really been on his level when it comes to swordsmanship. We know as much from this conversation. We don't have to read too much between the lines to know that Mihawk always respected Shanks as a fighter. No one's on that level anymore. Now, Mihawk obviously thinks that Shanks can't be on that same level because he's lost an arm, but Shanks just laughs it off. So that was a really nice moment, and I actually did not expect that at all, especially because I really like both of those characters. I mean, especially Mihawk. Mihawk is great. Our final scene for season 1 with the Going Merry, we see Nami looking at the tangerine trees which have been brought onto the ship. That's exactly what happens in the anime. I love it. And then we also see the Jolly Roger, which has been prepared. That one looks so good. It is exactly the One Piece Jolly Roger. That is exactly the sail that they have on their ship. I really wish the Going Merry was designed the same way, because this Going Merry, is it a goat? Is it a sheep? I don't know. It doesn't look nearly as cute as in the anime, but at least the Jolly Roger is exactly the same. That had to be nailed, and it was. And then we've got the final scene. They all put their feet on the barrel, and they announce what their dreams are. And they say they're going to the Grand Line. Perfect. And then there's one last scene. And we introduce, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be this character or a different bad guy, but this character is one of the best characters in One Piece. And he's smoking a cigar. And if you're not familiar with One Piece, I won't say anything else about that. But I really hope they do him justice. One of my favorite characters. I really hope they do him justice. That makes me excited for season 2. Well, those are all my thoughts for this episode. I'm not done yet because I have one more episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that. It's not going to be coming out in too long, and that's about my rating for the season, as well as some things I would like to see changed, but also some of my top scenes, top characters, etc. for season 1 of One Piece's live action on Netflix. So stick around because that's coming out soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time right here on One Frontiers. On One Frontiers.